A new UNICEF report indicates at least one child is being killed and 10 injured every day in Lebanon. A UNICEF spokesperson, James Elder's visiting shelters and hospitals in eastern Lebanon, speaking with displaced families and injured children. And here's a quick look at just some of what he saw.
I meet Ali, 2-year-old Ali, who spent 14 hours under rubble and hasn't spoken for about 2 weeks because of that trauma. We have to ask ourselves, are those with power, those with influence to stop this, really going to watch in silence again?
And James Elder joins me from Beirut for more on this. James, thanks for coming on. We heard a little in that clip, but what are you seeing and hearing there in Lebanon, and what made you want to capture it on video?
Look, Diane, I think because I spent so much time in Gaza, as your viewers just saw some of the scenes out of Gaza and what has just been heartbreak after heartbreak. And now to be in Lebanon, obviously conflicts are different and people talk about complications. It's not very complicated when, again, I'm walking through rubble of what was children's bedrooms, and I'm seeing, again, hundreds of thousands of children displaced, when overnight, you're woken by the massive bombardment, when I see the look in children's faces because they're in shelters. This is their lifeline now, but of course it's a place, it should be a place of learning. So I think for me, I'm just seeing these chilling similarities when you break it down to what it's doing here to children on the ground.
As Britt mentioned, this new Human Rights Watch report accuses Israel of mass displacement in Gaza, amounting to a war crime. The report says Israel's actions also appear to meet the definition of ethnic cleansing. Israel hasn't responded to that report yet, but what's your response, and how does it line up with what you're seeing?
Yeah, I'm in Lebanon, so I haven't seen the report on Gaza. Gaza is as harrowing as anything I think any aid worker has ever seen. There has been, the last month, which was meant to be an improvement on things based on international pressure, has been worse, Diane, much worse. Okay, so worse for people who are already at rock bottom, worse for people who have been displaced, in terms of bombardments, here, in terms of aid denials continuing. Now, we've spoken of aid denials for a year. You get polio on the ground because of aid denials. So that's why you get, again, imminent famine in the north because of aid denials. You don't get to a point, Diane, of 10, 11, 12. The number now is 15,000 girls and boys reportedly killed. If there's any semblance of proportionality or of humanitarian law being abided by, you don't see these kind of numbers. You don't see the horror in children in hospitals that are war zones, walking across children in hospitals, seeing 4th-degree burns, the screams, the smell of that burning. You don't get these things without that. You get hostages home in negotiations as well. You end that level of torment. We haven't seen anything resembling serious negotiations for a long, long time. So without seeing the report, I do know, though, that all the back and forth, Diane, of who said what, truth has long been a casualty of this war. And at the end of the day, history, unfortunately, is going to be very clear. Now, that doesn't help those in Gaza because, of course, this is ongoing in Gaza. And that's where we need anyone with influence right now to bring a halt to this as quickly as possible, to end the bombardment of children, to end this deprivation to the most basics of water, food, and to get the hostages home. But it's a message we have been sharing now for a year, at the same time as these civilians have been enduring this for a year.
Now, UNICEF has played a part in some critical interventions in Lebanon. What aid have you been able to get to these families in need? It's a lot, and it's something that lifts you through a day. It's sleepless nights, it's heavy bombardments again, and shelters. As I say, you do want children to be learning, but right now they're a lifeline. But it's a package of support. So it's things like blankets and mattresses, which sound so basic, but of course, when you lose your home, you lose the most basic things to sleep on. It's getting cold here. It's any type of temporary learning we can do. It's psychological support, getting children playing again in shelters, something to break the monotony of the reality of what they're enduring. I see a lot of that going on. So psychological support, nutritional support, Shelters are overawed in terms of water and sanitation. So it's a very, very large package of support. It changes the game for children, Diane, because they're well aware of, they are now in a very, very intense war zone. So at least to have some of the most basic necessities of life. But for an organisation like UNICEF, we are 1/5 funded. So when you're in frontline locations and when you're, in harm's way, and then also aware that we could be doing so much more for these children if there was support. I mean, they're children. And again, the complexities of war, it's not very complicated if you're a 7-year-old girl. So it's a lot of support, but we know right now as things escalate, it needs to be a lot more.
All right, James Elder in Beirut. James, thank you.